In the previous lesson, I explained business logic, how it generates random numbers, how it creates objects carrying the data, but I didn't explain how templates work, and I didn't explain how cookies actually work. But you saw how content of the cookies was converted into strings and back. That was explained, and video recording of that is posted in week 2, and this is DiceRoller Java video 1. What my explanation, today's explanation will be posted video 2 for DiceRoller video 2 in week 3. It will be here. So this is a goal. So let's clone this example. If you didn't clone it, please clone it. If you did clone it, you can refresh or you can update. I will show how to update it. Or you can just delete the folder and clone it again. This will be fine. So I went to DiceRoller, I click it, copy. Now I go to IntelliJ, and now I'm about to clone. When you clone project with IntelliJ, the procedure is exactly the same no matter what the project. You click Get from Version Control System. After this, you Control-V address, what you just copied. When you do so, make sure that you are creating a folder for the project. Sometimes when we browse, this folder will disappear because you browse to another folder, it doesn't have it. So this way you need to copy-paste or type it again. A bad scenario if you clone it and you end up in downloads folder, the files will be mixed with stuff in your downloads folder. Yeah. So I clone it and oops, it says DiceRoller exists. Right? What does it say? Directory already exists. So for this reason, I need to delete it because I don't want to mix stuff in this folder with other things. So in SpringBoot, somehow I got this folder, so I delete it. Now it doesn't exist. And clone. Oops. Okay, now I got clone of the project. It's still loading, so let's wait. Scanning files, here it is. We have controller, that's game controller. We have some utility that is converting objects about result of the role into string, because cookie can store only string. So it takes raw data object, converts to string, and picks string that came from a cookie and convert it to raw data. There is one additional issue, because not every symbol can be stored in a cookie, so it's not just joining pieces. You need to be careful about some symbols that are not allowed in the cookies. For example, spaces and commas. Equal signs are not allowed in cookies. So there is a general way to convert those, to avoid those symbols, but this is not doing general way. It is just doing brute force by joining numbers and plus signs in between. The explanation is video recorded as the previous video and posted. So this is about cookie data service. It is implemented here using Java streams. I used this example to explain the concept of Java streams. There is also additional service in domain. I call it roller service. It is defined as interface with one method, and whatever satisfies this role service is good enough because it is returning role data. And what is role data? Role data is defined in the model. Cancel. In the model, it is what has method get values, which is list of integers. So it will correspond to the two integers for the dice, values of the dice, get number of dice, and get total. Again, whatever satisfies this interface is good enough. So I got implementation. Implementation is discussed at the previous lesson. And the same implementation for role data service is discussed in the previous lesson. I also use stream to generate it. There is one more implementation that is familiar to you from the example of pure Java project. It is also satisfying the same interface, and so it is replaceable. Today we'll have example with two implementations in it. It's an example for dependency injection with qualifier. Okay. So we have two variants today. So in my dice game service, these two, dice game controller, these two services are provided to the constructor. So when we deal with web project that is using SpringBoot, pieces of the program are connected automatically together by dependency injection system. We never call constructor of the controller ourselves. System is creating this object automatically, and it will connect it to framework automatically by dependency injection. And when we write programs using Spring or SpringBoot, SpringBoot is variant of Spring. We need to be extremely careful to annotations for sure, because if you miss those, the program will not be connected properly. So this annotation controller tells the system it's a controller, call constructor, and create the object and connect this object to the system. So it will be called when a request is received. For example, when request is received for this address, it will call this method. When request is received for this address, it will also call this method. When request is received to address reset, system will call this method. So this is how controllers work. If you do not annotate it with controller, SpringBoot will never create this object, and when this request comes, result will be not found, because these addresses would not exist in the framework, so they will not be found. Okay? So be careful about annotations. So there are additional annotations besides controller. We'd also never call it constructors of these objects directly, cookie data service and roller data service. We annotated them with service, implementation of them annotated with the service, not interface implementations, annotated with the service. It gives similar message to the framework. Call constructor, make the object, and inject it where it is necessary. Where it is necessary in the constructor. These kind of injections called constructor injection because those objects are injected into constructor call. All right? So when system is starting the program, it will create controller by calling constructor. But before creating controller, it has to create these two objects by calling constructor of them and inject them into parameter of this constructor and call the constructor. So program will be put together automatically at the start of the program time. It is not at compilation time. At the compilation time, it will only check that it is consistent. If you took Android class, you learned that in Android system, there is a dependency injection, and dependency injection done at compile time versus program starting time in SpringBoot. Okay? So it's a different system. Okay. It is similar but different and implemented differently. So this is how the program starts. So when request is received, system will call this constructor. But first it will, if you provide filters, it will try to call filters the same way. Filters can be also configured for specific addresses. I have a filter in this case for demo purpose. This filter is not configured to specific address. It is by default to all addresses of the program, including image addresses, including CSS addresses. So this filter will be called even when browser sends request for CSS. You will see this message even when the browser sends request for CSS. Okay? Images as well. You can have more than one filter in your program, but again, filters are annotated with add component, so the system will create this object and inject it in the right place. If you have more than one filter, you can order them by additional configurations, if order is important to you. If order is not important to you, it will do something by default. It will order them by default. Filters are important because security is implemented by security features such as login and password are implemented internally using filters. It is the simplest way and the best way to implement it. You don't have to create filters yourself. You call security options of SpringBoot to use them. Okay. So this filter doesn't do much except it is printing received request and pass the request and response object further. And when this method returns, it calls done. Okay? It prints done. Request is processed. So this is the idea behind this simple filter. It is just for demo purpose. All right? So where these methods, where these objects come? When browser sends request is just piece of information transferred through network. It's not Java object. These Java objects, servlet request and servlet response, are created by servlet container. Servlet container, it's a software, it's a server, essentially, that wraps your program. Servlet, it's a part of the framework. It's a piece that is, it's a piece of software that is calling your controller methods. That server, a servlet, specific servlet, that is called methods of your controller, is called dispatcher servlet. Okay. There is also default servlet. That servlet is serving static HTML, static, not templates, static HTML, CSS, images, and whatever is not handled by your controllers. Whatever address is not handled by your controllers, it will come to default servlet, and if default servlet doesn't know how to do it with it, you will get 404 error from default servlet. So 404 error is provided by default servlet. If your program is crashing also 500 error is also coming from that way. Okay? So this is essential configuration of what is going on. So in my resources folder, I have a static folder that has CSS and images dice. How to deal with CSS and CSS, it was explained at the previous lesson. Images also have a similar issue as CSS. It has two addresses. One address is for opening the template using browser as opening HTML. So this is just HTML opened. And the other address is used by template engine. This address, starting with TH, is used by template engine when template is processed. Okay. Links have the same issue. You see, link to A. This address is just to have links work. Okay, when they open it in the browser. This one, it's not reset. Game start. Yes, it is reset. So if I click on this, it will just go to another HTML, which is game start, right? But it's not running program. I didn't press run. And this is address used by template engine. So it will insert this address. Okay. When template is processed instead of this. Okay. Images also have two addresses. One, it is used to display page, like here. So where it is? Here it is. This is to use it to display HTML, so you can debug appearance of it, to see size of image, margins around this image, this kind of stuff. And TH tags use it by template engine to pick it dynamically and insert it instead of tags without TH. Okay. So this is the idea behind template and stuff that you want to show inside of template. So let's see step by step how it works. This program is also using logger to show the steps. Let's talk quickly about logger. Logger is configured inside of application properties, and in this case, I configured these two traits. We already had logger at the previous lesson. And I said that configuring logger gives you flexibility what you want to show. You can provide it per package of your application. So let's quickly discuss logger. I provided slides about logger in the previous week, but I didn't have time to cover them, so let's quickly do so. In week 2. In week 2, I have slides using logging. There are only 3 slides, so 4. Let's quickly go through that. So how it works? Logging is extremely important, especially at the time of the debugging and when you run it on the server, because when it crashes on the server, you will never know that it crashed for specific user output. Logger provides flexibility extreme flexibility of how you want to save the data. If you configure your program for server side, for server in real life scenario, you can record logging into files, so it will create files per date, zip older files, delete older files, so you will never run out of space on hard drive. So it is extremely flexible. I don't use this flexibility in my example. I want to keep it simple. If you want to configure it, look up documentation. It's not hard to find. In my examples, I use SLF4J. SLF4J is the front end to several loggers. So you have additional flexibility to using different loggers after this front end. My programs are using just front end. There are manuals, but you don't have to go through manuals because in this course we use it just at very basic. We can use loggers without web. And this example shows how to use logger in just pure Java. Okay, it is posted on GitHub. You can even run this Hello World program. So in order to use logger, you create logger object, and you provide name of the class. You use the same approach in the constructor, any class where you want to print logs. Name of the class will be output, or will be shown in your log, so you know where this message is coming from. These are levels of logging. When you do log.arrow, it will print error message. When you do log.debug, it will be debug message. You can limit output based on restriction. For example, if you say level debug, it will print debug info warn error but not trace. If you specify level info, it will print info warn error but not this two. This way, you can specify level of output per package. So technically, you can have a different level for controller or your data package of your app. So it is extremely fine control. Okay. And it's good to use. It's because of it. And this is the example how to use it in the controller. In the previous lesson, we discussed it, such option as Lombok. And my opinionated opinion, maybe not true, and many people will argue with that, Lombok, in my opinion, useless. The reason why it is useless. IDE can generate all the code that Lombok is doing. Of course, your code will become longer because IDE will generate it. How Lombok works? It generates code at the time of compilation in some temporary files and compile it afterwards. So when you use Lombok, you need to rely on something to be generated, and you need to imagine this stuff to be generated. Especially in the beginning, when you learn it, is just add extra confusion, in my opinion. But again, it's only opinion that can be wrong. Many teachers and many textbooks just start using Lombok from the beginning, and they use it till the end of the course. So it's a way of doing it. I will definitely provide examples how to use it, but I prefer not to use it. Because in my opinion, it doesn't add anything except confusion. Okay. So again, system is around Relatively easy to learn to use, but I'm not using this on purpose. I will provide examples where I will use it to show. So if you use Lombok, you don't need to create this piece. You write SLF for J on top, and this variable will be defined automatically at compile time. So you will rely on this variable existing. Okay. Questions? So it definitely makes the code shorter, but it makes it more mysterious, essentially. Lombok also can generate setters, getters for you by extra annotation on top, and also constructors. So this is the idea behind using Lombok. Additional information, where to find it. So let's go back to our example. Here it is. So let's start this example, but not why it is from current file. This is strange. Sometimes it happens. So usually it doesn't. Okay, but sometimes it does. So when you see current file instead of starting program, you just deal with it brute force. You go to application class here, and run it by clicking this run. Okay. After this, it will add entry for application class. Okay. So usually it doesn't happen. In this case, it did. Okay. Usually when you clone it or create it from scratch, you will get already application class listed here. But now, okay, I will run it and wait, and you will see here it is. It shows up. So next time I can click run button. So this is indeed starting point of your program, but it doesn't call your code directly. So how it works? SpringBoot get this call, and you see this contains Spring application run, so this is the name of the class. So it knows where it belongs because every class comes with package definition, and it will scan this package for objects annotated with specific annotations. For example, controller. It will call constructor and connect constructors of those objects, and it will connect those pieces together. So this is how application starts. So again, if you forget about annotations in your code like this, or in service, right, it will not know how to put them together, so it will not work. So what would be the symptom for error? It will not find your controller because it doesn't exist. And it cannot call addresses from the controller because it doesn't know that these addresses exist. Okay. So what do you have here? I'm going to localhost 8080. By the way, let's look into the log. It says started at port Tomcat, this is servlet container, started at port 8080. Okay. I don't have messages from the controller yet, although I do have them in the controller. Why? Because this controller method is called when we receive the request at this address or this address, right? So in order to receive the address, this request should be sent by browser. So when requests are sent by browser, when we type address in the command line, click on the link, click on bookmark, type something, click submit, all of this stuff, all those user actions will result in send request and receive a request, right? So let's do that. I'm going to bookmark localhost 8080, and you see something happened, right? It printed logs. So what happened? It printed received request for root folder. It's not from here, right? It came from my filter. Received request for URI, right? For this. Dice game is called. Dice game is called came from my controller. Dice game is called. Number of dice is 3. Number of dice is 3. Why it is 3? Remember how we received parameters in the previous lesson? At the previous lesson, we received parameters you calling request param, correct? But we didn't send these parameters. Why does it know 3? Because I said default value is 3. If there is no such parameter, it will use default value 3. This is the reason why it's printed 3. I also didn't send request parameter is rolled true or false, but it picked default false. So this is why it says default false. Okay? Is rolled false, so you are here. All right? No. Is rolled false, so you are here, else, right? So it prints dice is not rolled. It says no previously saved state in the cookie, so you are here. No previously saved state in the cookie. It tried to check cookie, but it didn't find anything there. All right? So you're here. No previously saved state in the cookie. So what does it do? It just displays game start page without any data in it. Okay? Game start page without any data in it. Okay? Now, this game start page without, where is that? Without data, game start. What does it have? It has a form with select option drop-down list, sending the value. Okay? Value it is whatever sent, and this is just numbers shown in drop-down list. So TH means process it on the server side, so it will insert this value into value tag. So here we will see it inside of value tag. View page source, you see this is inside of value tag. And not tag value attribute. Okay? So 3 is selected by default. So 3 is selected by default. Okay? So what happens when you click roll? It will submit this and also hidden value. So this page has hidden value. View page source, you see, input hidden is rolled true. Okay? So this is hidden. So it will send two values. One is not hidden, one is hidden. Why do we use hidden values? To maintain logic. Right? It's a helper to maintain logic. So roll dice, and you will see that this is not really so hidden because it shows up here. Is rolled true, right? So is rolled true is submitted and received. Now, what do I have here? A request. You see also filter prints. A response sent for that. A response sent for that, but before it was a request for images, request for CSS. Filter is reacting on it. So browser sends requests also per image, per CSS, but you don't have to worry about it because default servlet is taking care of them. So this is the mission of default servlet, to take care of images, CSS, and anything what you don't take care of. Okay? Right, so let's continue. So it says, a request is received for /dicegame to this address. You see /dicegame, request is received. And now, dicegame is called. Where is my controller? Controller. Dicegame is called, so you're here. It says number of dice is 3, because I sent 3. Not because it's default, but because I sent 3. Is rolled is true now, because it was true, right? And now, is rolled is true, so you're here, right? Dice is rolled, and now you check range. Because it came kind of from web, you don't want to get number of dice 2000s, right? So I check for the range. So if it is within the range, I use this number. If it's outside of the range, I log 1, and I use 3. Okay. And after this, I display debug, raw data, and this is how debug shows up. See, debug shows with debug, and trace shows with trace. This is debug. And I created cookie. I set max age. Max age is in seconds, so it is 1 hour, right? No, it is 1 day. 1 day, right? 24 hours, 60 minutes, 60 seconds. So it is in seconds, but it's 1 day. So this cookie will expire in 1 day. Right? And it is returning model and view. So model and view, what is that? It's object that combines name of the view and data and name of the data inside of the template. A view it is template. So game result. How game result works? Let's open game result. In the game result, I have a loop. It is for each loop, for every value in raw data values. I use template like in the previous lesson to generate a string. I could use plus sign to join strings. That was also. Images, dice, site underscore, and value. That will generate me name of the image to be inserted. Right? And this is alt to be inserted. These two pieces are inside of special tag that will hide these two pieces from template engine. But it will not hide them from browser if you just open template here. So this is hard-coded 1, 2, 3. Hard-coded 1, 2, 3. Okay. But this will be hidden from the template engine, so template engine will see each loop and generate this using each loop. All right? So what is the purpose of this cookie? A cookie, as you see, it is added to a response. So whatever is added to response is sent back to the browser, right? So where's my controller? So I created cookie. It added to response. And what you add to response, send back to the browser. Template engine will add HTML to the response, but we don't see it. It is done under the hood. So response will contain HTML, also HTML, generated by template engine. And all this stuff will be sent back from the servlet container back to the browser. Okay. So cookie will be received by the browser. Next time when your browser sends request, it will contain the cookie, provided it is within the same range of addresses. By default, it will be all addresses of your server. Okay? We can limit the scope of the cookie by folders, per folders on the server side, or per address even. Okay? So you can limit scope of the cookie this way to limit traffic, but nobody does it. Even server has a lot of cookies, like a slate, lookup cookies. All of them has default paths, just slash. So people don't worry about it because cookies are usually small piece of information, so people don't worry about it. Limiting the scope of cookies. So next time browser send request, it will contain the cookie. Why do I do it? Why do I do it? I want to show how to save state. So this program will remember current state. So if you go to this address, default address next time, and cookie didn't expire yet, it shows the state. You see? Now I don't have this submit. Why does it show this again? Because when request is received, My program is checking cookie, and if cookie is found, it shows data from cookie. So this is how I coded this, to show how to deal with cookies. So what happens now? So here where? A received request for slash, dice game is called. So you're here. A received request from slash, dice game is called. Okay. A number of dice is 3. It's not because I entered 3. It is because default is 3. Is roll it is false, not because I entered it false, because it is default is false. So you're here, right? Is roll it false. Since is roll it false, you are at this step right now, because is roll it is false. Now if the program is checking for cookie, so dice is not rolled, it is checking for cookie, it found the cookie, so it's not empty, so here it's printing, restoring previous state from the cookie, restoring previous state from the cookie. Okay. Then try, because potentially this may throw error. Why it may throw error? If you experiment with storing data in a cookie, you may have an older cookie stuck in a browser, in some browser, but you're already using new format of cookie. So it just cannot understand it, it throws error, and here you are. If it throws error, you just display it without cookie game start page. So it recovers crash. But if it doesn't throw error, decoded data from the cookie value, this is raw data, and you display data as it was just generated, using game result and raw data. Okay? So this is how program is recovering the state from the cookie. Again, in your assignment, you can use this such thing. So your player can close browser and open browser again and see last state. But it's not required. Do it only if you finish required path. So what else is not explained here? This, reset. When we click reset, it goes to original state. So what did it do? It deleted cookie and redirected back to slash, to original state. So let's see. A reset was just a link. So let's go here. It is just a link going to slash reset. How do I know? View page source. Reset is just a link going to reset relative to current location, so it is slash reset. Okay. So browser sent request to slash reset. So what happens when browser sends request to some address? System will try to find address in the controllers. You can have more than one controller. In this case, it's only one. So it will try to find it, and it will find address slash reset. So what happens here? We create cookie. Content is not important, but name is important. Raw data. It has to be the same name. Otherwise, you cannot replace it. Expiration time is 0. It means when this cookie is received, it will replace previous cookie and expire immediately. So browser will delete it. Looks ugly, but this is only way to delete a cookie. There is no other API to delete a cookie. And what happens here? Redirect. If you don't redirect, you will stay at address reset. Not a pretty. If you redirect, server sends response to the browser with new address and says, redirect. Redirect, go to that address, essentially. Okay? It's like calling a phone number, but on the other side, on the other end, operator says, call another number without forwarding. What's the difference between redirection and forwarding? Forwarding call, you don't have to dial again, right? A redirection, you have to. The same applies to web. If it is forwarding, browser doesn't have to send new request. A redirection, it gives new address and browser needs to send new request. Okay? So this is how to redirect browser to another address. In this case, I'm redirecting to root of the server or on the server side, not to another server. If you want to redirect to something on web, it's fine. But in this case, you have to start this address with HTTP and location of another server. So this is the concept of redirection. So I used this part of the example to explain what is redirection, and how redirection works, and how to send redirect. Also, I used this part to show how to delete cookie.